So hi everyone, I'm Maggie Lin. I'm the chair of Seizing Wonder Challenge, and I'm also the founder of Twin Oaks Education. We've been initiating this challenge for the second year this time, and this is the first time we include the students from Hong Kong and Singapore, and we also have Flossie Chua from Harvard Project Zero as our advisor to advise on how we design this whole challenge to make sure we really foster the thinking, develop your thinking disposition, which will be very helpful for your future endeavor. So why do we host this? So Twinkle is a very unique social enterprise that we really believe that learning is beyond the boundary of disciplines. It's beyond the boundary of subjects. So a lot of time when you go to the real life, you find that a lot of the wisdom and knowledge is beyond what you learn from the books. So to learn how to think is very critical. If you can think, you will know who you are, what you want to do, where you want to go, and what kind of actions to take. So everyone has a lot of potential within you to really drive your own path. And in order to unlock those potentials, thinking is the critical part of it. And why we constantly mentioning see, think, wonder. It is because we found that a lot of the innovations and a lot of invention actually coming from seeing. When you see the signs, so when you look back on history and you think about Newton, so when he first realized the gravity, it's because he see an apple falling from the tree. So the observation is a very critical first step that brings a lot of inspiration for you to think further to create your own wisdom. Thinking is the glue that connects everything. So that's why we really want to highlight the importance of seizing wonder as a critical thinking routine everyone should build up. So how does this whole thing work? We want to first introduce you, what do we mean by seizing wonder? So when we say see, think, wonder, when we say see, it means looking closely, looking slowly, and try to capture as many details and many features as possible, because each of those details will be a source of inspiration. And when we talk about think, it's like making interpretation from your observation. So what kind of interpretation you will make when you see an apple falling from the tree? Those inspiration and those interpretation will become a new thoughts to think about a new solution or new creation or new invention. That's what we mean by wonder, because you will go beyond what you see and what you think. You will try to think about what does it mean? So you might interpret the apple falling down as something that grab the apple to the ground. It's like the gravity, some kind of force that grabbed the apple to the ground. And you probably then you start to wonder, it's not just apple. Everything, when you fall down, it always fall down to the ground. Is this one single universal force that grab everything toward the center of the earth? So that's probably how they make those interpretation and create their own theory. And this is the thinking disposition, or we call it a habit, that we hope everyone can build, so that in the future, when you see something, you will see an opportunity within it. So let's try something like this. Let's look at this apple. It's a really simple apple. You can just try to look at it and try to write down as many detail as you can see from this apple. This is just a very normal apple. So we're trying to help everyone to practice a skill to just really distinguish what you actually see. So when you write down something you see, try to write down something that you can really use your finger. If you can point it out on the picture, that means something you really see. If you can't use your finger to pinpoint it, I don't think this is something you see. It's probably something in your mind. So you can just write down whatever you actually see from the apple. I'll give a quick example. So maybe one thing I see from the picture is I see a green leaf on top of the apple. Okay. I'll just wait everyone to write something down here. Try to read into details, and also look from the broader sense, like what does this whole thing look like? Okay, Okay, I'm going to share with you some of the things I wrote down. You can compare this with some of the thing you wrote, or you can also compare this to something you already thought of. There's a fresh leaf. So this is just not, it's not just a green leaf, it's something, it's pretty fresh, it's not dried up. And you can see the apple has a red skin, and it has a couple of like yellowish or white line around the surface. And you can see that the red color is pretty evenly distributed. It's not like red at the left-hand side, orange or yellow at the right-hand side. It's pretty widespread, evenly distributed red. And on top of it, you can see some light. You can see a small light up here. And you also probably notice the shape of the apple is almost like a perfect sphere. It's like almost like a ball. Why does all those matter? Because when you list down all these scattered thoughts, you probably already noticed there's a commonality across these. These are something has similarity around this. You probably think about, oh, now I see a couple of features of it. It's pretty attractive. For example, it's not a dry leaf. The color looks nice and the shape looks almost perfect. It's like a perfect apple. It looks like an attractive apple. It's not like an apple that's already bitten by a bug. It seems like a perfect apple. And then you start to wonder, why is it? And you probably already think about it. It's probably an apple that's specifically chosen for a photo shooting. So when you see an apple, you might quickly think about, this is an apple for the photo shooting. And if you want to shoot it, you want to take a photo for a specific apple, you probably want to find something that has a fresh leaf. It's almost like a perfect round shape. It's all red. These are probably the criteria when you're looking for an apple for a photo. So for anyone who look at the same apple, you may not come up with all these insights. But when you are already a master of see, think, wonder, and taking it as a daily habit, you will see everything in your daily life. It embedded a lot of meaning behind it, and it also embedded a lot of insight behind it. And this is the kind of thinking routine we hope everyone can build up. And this whole challenge is to help you to build up this kind of thinking disposition. You will be able to observe more details after the challenge. And the more details you can see, the more interpretation and ideas you will have. So if you wanted to start to think about some bigger challenge, like what am I going to do about my life, you'll also be able to you'll also be able to observe what you are doing, and you'll also be able to quickly interpret what kind of person you are, what you want to do based on what you observe in your daily life. And this seems to be very difficult, but it's not really that difficult. Everyone can do seeing or observing. So you don't really have to be a great person to start. You have to start to be great. And a lot of time, I know a lot of students or teachers now talks about sustainable development goals. Sometimes you even have to do a project around it. And sometimes you don't know where to start. If you are really good at seeing wonder, you will find that for a poverty issue or a climate issue, you will have a lot of idea based on, have a lot of interpretation based on. So then you have something that's because this completely coming from your own thoughts. And I think before you can really crack something like that difficult, you can start with this challenge. And that's exactly why we break it down into 4 different rounds, because from each round, you will be able to gradually build up a different skill set. So for round 1, it's really critical for you to build out your observation skills. So for round 1, we really want you to focus on single object, and it's also a very simple object. It's a static object, so you can look around it, you can really observe the details of those differences. So for example, like this one is what we see last year. You will see a vending machine 100 years ago and a vending machine today. You try to see what's the difference between those two and think about why there's such difference. It embedded a lot of human needs behind it, and you also see the technology might change a little bit, And you probably also noticed that the drink that they sell is also different. There's more than Coca-Cola in the new vending machine. And you can think about why is it, why there's such difference. Those are the good starting point for you to practice your see, think, wonder skills. And in your second round, you will be able to see you will be able to see the same thing from different country. So for example, last year, everyone's looking at supermarket, and they have supermarket from Finland, US, and Japan. And so you have multiple objects to look at. It's more dynamic this round, so you'll see more details. So we want to gradually increase the amount that you see, and gradually increase the information that you receive as well. So in your semi-final, you will see more than just simple objects. You might also be able to walk into the store and look around it. You can take up the thing, look around the stuff in the store. So it will be a more interactive environment. And you'll also notice that seizing wonder skill is not just something on paper. It's something that you can bring into the real life. So in semi-final and final, you'll bring into the real world setting, one in IKEA and the other in 7-Eleven. Now I will explain how this works for each round. So for round one, it will happen in February 11th to February 12th next year. You will only choose a session to join. So you don't have to do it for 2 full days. You only do it for 2 hours. So there's 6 different time slots for you to choose from. So firstly, it's all going to be conducted online. You can choose a site that you want to go into. One site is purely Chinese. It will be traditional Chinese. And the other side will be purely in English. So everyone who joined this round, you join individually. You don't join in teams. And you will have participants come from Hong Kong and Singapore. If you choose a round in Chinese, it will be purely Chinese. You won't be able to switch it to English. So make sure when you choose your round, choose the language that you want. And each session, I think it takes up to 2 hours to finish, but usually in the past, we find that it only takes about 1 hour roughly. So you can take 1 hour to, you can join the session when the session start in your given time, which for example, this one, the sites will open at 10 o'clock and it will close at 12. So before the challenge start, you will receive a hyperlink. But the hyperlink will only be effective when the time comes. So you can finish it anytime between this time slot. You don't really have to join on time at 10. You can join it slightly later, but the site will completely close by 12. Okay, and in this round, you'll only be graded by pass or fail. You don't have a grading for it, but when you pass, you can join round 2. We'll share more about how this works later, like how the evaluation work. One thing we really want to remind everyone is try to use a desktop or laptop computer. We do not recommend you to use tablet or smartphone because the screen is too small for you to do a close observation. And we also recommend you to prepare papers and pen for you to jot down the ideas that you have. And also we want to remind you the session will only open for that 2 hours. After that, everything will be closed. So if you want to submit your answer, we highly recommend you to submit it slightly earlier, like 5 minutes or 10 minutes earlier, because we don't know how stable your internet will be. If you submit it to the last minute, some students last year say they already submitted, but it was like 1 minute later than the original time slot. So if you really want to make sure you submit it, try to submit it a little bit earlier. The link to the site, to the challenge, will be sent 1 day before the challenge. We will send it by 6 p.m. So if you don't receive it, make sure you contact us. We will resend it to you again. So you have roughly like a couple of hours before your real challenge starts. In terms of how many people will be qualified to advance to round 2, there's no limit to the qualifiers. So basically, if you can pass the basic requirement, you will be able to advance to round 2. We don't limit like only the top 15 or top 100 can join. Everyone, if you can pass the basic requirement, able to requirement later. Okay, so in round 2, you will still join as an individual, and at the pretty much like last round, you will it's all conducted online. There will be an online site for you to finish all your challenge. You can do it in either language. It takes about roughly like 1 hour to 3 hours to finish. But this time, when you receive the link and more information on March 5th, you will have a lot of time to finish that. So for example, when you receive it, the link will be activated on March 11th, Saturday, early morning at 6 a.m. And you have a lot of time to finish it until March 12th, Sunday, 6 p.m. So this site will be effective and open around this time. Again, we will have certain criteria to decide who will be able to pass to semifinal. The evaluation is basically purely based on the quality of your observation and thinking, like how detailed you can see from the photo, and is your interpretation based on the facts, how logical it is, and we will also share more details in the following slide later. But this time, the passing bar is much higher. Only the top 15 challenger from each region, from Taiwan, Hong Kong, and Singapore, will be able to advance to semifinal. And again, we just wanted to remind you, try to use desktop and laptop to do the challenge. Do not use tablet or smartphone. And we want to remind you this time, the session will be open for a longer time period. And also for this round, if you pass round 1 and you advance to round 2, you finish the round 2 and your round 2 quality is similar to your round 1 or above your quality in your round 1 performance, you will be able to get a round 2 promotion certificate to prove that you already passed basic bar of See, Think, Wonder. You have basic skill for this thinking disposition. And this certificate will be given from our organizing team, which include Harvard Project Zero's principal investigator. She will also sign on this certificate. So this is I think this is a very precious certificate for you to prove that you already achieved a certain level of thinking skills. Okay, so in semifinal, this will be in a team base. So anyone, you join as individual from the first 2 rounds, but the top 15 players from different region, we will try to group you in team. So in each team, you will have a member from Taiwan, one from Hong Kong, and one from Singapore. Again, in this round, everything will be conducted online. And in this time, most of the content will be in English. We also have some contents in Chinese. So that's why we think a teaming will be very helpful, because you will be able to first practice your team collaboration skills, and you will also be practicing how you do collaboration in bilingual setting. You will also be encouraged to visit local IKEA store for more data to think about your solution. But basically, everything we provided to you online will be sufficient enough. So the store visit is an optional thing. The presentation, we have presentation, and you also have to do a video for semifinal. This will be conducted in English, but for some of the office hour and the mentorship time, it will be Mandarin. So let me walk you through the timeline. So on April 3rd, you will receive a notification about whether you are advanced to semifinal. And in that same week, on Saturday, 9 a.m. to 10:30 a.m., you will join an online summit. That's the time we'll explain more detail about how you're going to run semifinal, where are those information, what did IKEA actually share with us. So here in this round, IKEA actually partnered with us. So they will share information about what they have been doing for sustainability and what they've been doing for circular economy model. And that's the topic that we will do for this round. And for the following weekend, you will be able to brainstorm with Seizing Wonder team. That's our internal team. We will brainstorm some of the idea for your presentation. And also you might have some question about how to conduct this research, whether your idea is worth mentioning. Those are the question we can discuss in the office hour. And in the following week, we'll actually invite those people from IKEA. So that would be like store manager, that might be some store designer. They can also brainstorm with you on, they can give you some advice or feedback on your initial proposal. You might already have a couple of ideas, you want to test the water, you want to know what they think. That's the right time you can discuss with them. So you actually have a lot of input from experienced people. You don't have to worry that you three are just students who first met, whether you can come up with a good idea. You have a lot of support here. Okay, so after all these research, you will be able to make a presentation on May 14th. That's on weekend. We'll also do it online on Zoom. So you will do the presentation on that day, sharing what you already found, what you see, and what you think, what you wonder whether this is the new circular economy model approach or plans that you can actually carry out in IKEA. So for that piece, I just want to shed some light to it so that you know more about what we mean by it. So when we say circular economy, it's like you probably have a table at home that's a little bit old, but it's not broken yet. But you don't want to keep it at home. You want to have a newer furniture. If you just throw it in the recycling site or a garbage site, it's completely waste of furniture, right? Because it's still new, it's still usable. So some people will open up a secondhand market to sell all this used secondhand furniture. And this is a way to circulate the useful good for the society. That's what we mean by circular economy. So we would like to invite you to come up with a couple of ideas. What else can we do to save the environment, try not to create a lot of large use furniture waste in the society? How can we reuse it? Or what are other way we can use, maybe like share economy model to make this old furniture still useful for the society? So basically that's the topic you will do for the semifinal. So you will do a presentation about it, about what you propose people can do, and why do you, what are the research or observation that brings this idea to the table. And for all those people who join this round, no matter you can advance to the final or not, you will receive top 15 certificate, because it's really, I think this is really a great honor, because from this whole nation, it's really hard to be the top 15. So if you can get top 15, you definitely worth a good reward. So we'll also give you a big certificate for that. And again, it's honored by Harvard Project Zero's principal investigator. Is also honored by us. So I think it's a very good one for you to keep a record. And for the final, so this is going to be something very similar to the last round, but we want to do it again because I think the thinking routine we're trying to build is supposed to be useful for your future endeavor. And that process is not easy. So we wanted to repeat this again so that you really know in the future, if you want to do a similar thing, how this whole thing works. So if you look at the timeline, firstly, we just want to mention this is still a team based. So from last round, you will work with the same team to join your final game. And in this final, we will announce who will join the final game on May 15. And in that same weekend, you will have an online segment. We will tell you more about what are the resources you can refer to and what is the actual topic. And you will also have chance to talk to overseas mentor on the following week. On the following weekend, we'll invite different mentors who have similar background or really good at thinking. They will brainstorm with you what are some good idea and whether your evidence is solid enough, what are other logic loophole that you probably have to come to make up off. This is something that your mentor will talk about with you. And also, pretty similar to last round, we will invite people from 7-Eleven to have that conversation with you. But again, I want to mention that for these mentorship time, it will be either in English or Mandarin. So you really have to rely on your team members, really a team game. So it's very bilingual, but in the presentation day, on June 18th, that will be all in English. So again, there will be a presentation that you have to share in English. I think I probably already mentioned that in last round, in semifinal. So basically, we want you to focus more thinking on your logic, your interpretation, and spend more time on closely looking at the things and think about what does it tells you. So we don't want you to spend too much time on slide writing or beautifying your slide. So we'll provide you a template. And also we want to highlight that the look of the presentation will not be scored. So even if you have a perfect slide, you won't not be ranking higher just because you have a good looking slides. So spend more time on the thinking. Make sure you bring up some insights that's really in your head. That's what we want to see. And that's also something we encourage you to practice. Okay, so in terms of reward, so for the top 5 players, you have a lot of rewards. So certificate for sure, you have some souvenir from Seizing Wonder, you will also have some souvenir from Harvard, you have some books, you have some gift cards. So for the gift card, it's a very generous gift card, I think, so every team have 3 members, but each member, you will have your own gift cards. So for champion team, you will have like 10,000 new Taiwan dollar gift cards. It's actually a lot of money that you can buy a lot of things, but no matter you are first place or you're 5th place, you all have some gift cards. So generally, we don't want you to competing like you're cutting throat competing with each other. We just want you to know, we encourage you to pursue for excellence. But anyone who can join top 5, you are all good players for sure already. So don't blame yourself too much on the ranking. We just want to encourage you to pursue for excellence. Okay, now we talk about how we evaluate it. So for round one, this is the picture they see last year. So we always call this first round a 1-year invention exhibition or exhibit, because this is the round that we will show you 2 photos of the same product that you can see it, what it looked like 100 years ago and what it looked like today. Think about looking closely and see what's the difference between the 2, and think about what caused the difference. This is the question you will be asked in round 1. So practice to look closely, try to find as many details as possible, and also try to come up with more interpretation about why. That's the thing that we wanted to practice on round 1. So in terms of rubric, we will only evaluate on how many observations you see. Try to write down more than 3. And we will also evaluate what are the interpretation you make. Did you make your interpretation based on your observation or not? So these are the only 2 criteria. The last one I would say is the basic, right? Basically, you have to finish everything in the form. Don't leave any information blank. That's for sure. So I think the critical rubric that you wanted to look at is the first 2. What we can share with you, what people failed last year is they wrote the observation that's less than 3. And you probably wonder why. It is because one thing we want to highlight is, well, what we mean by observation is something that you can pinpoint it with your finger on the photo. If you cannot point it out with your finger, it's not something you actually see. So that's why it won't count as one of the observations. So this is something we really want to remind you. And why we do it this way is because we really want to practice your observation skill, and we want to call it objective observation skills. We hope you can distinguish the 2. When we say objective, it's like something you can really pinpoint with your finger. If you think you see something, but you cannot pinpoint with your finger, that's because you have some background knowledge about the same thing. You probably have seen it before. You have some experience with it. So that's not like objective facts. That's your experience. And if it's a subjective experience, it may not be true. It probably has certain possibility to be false, or some part of it has to be validated. So we hope that you can distinguish the two. And that's exactly why in round one, we really care about you write down the observation in the objective way. And make sure you write down more than 3 observations. Okay. And in the second part, why some people failed last year is because they make some interpretation, but they didn't mention why they make such interpretation. So make sure you write down the reason, and make sure you write down which interpretation you are trying to make. You're trying to say, for example, like this one, you probably see a case around it, but this one you don't see a case around the toast. So you probably will make an interpretation saying that, oh, we want to keep the heat, that's why we create a case around it. So that's a good interpretation. You make an interpretation based on the observation. Okay. For round 2, so this is the challenge that we have last year. They observed different supermarket from different country, and we hope that from this observation, you can see we can learn from the world. So the whole world can be the source of your inspiration. But how do? We do it by close observation. So when we say close observation, we give you some photos, some videos, so you can look at a lot of details about how they've been arranging their vegetable. So this is a question they have last year. This year, you will have a different question, but very similar to this, you have to do a very close observation based on the material we share with you. So the rubric that we have this time is we will have a scale from 1 to 5. We will scale based on the quality of your observation. So for example, how the number of your observation for sure, and how detailed you actually see from those photos, and whether your observation is highly relevant to your interpretation and your wonder. What do you wonder about this thing? So for thinking part, we evaluate the evidence that where do you come up with your interpretation? It must be evidence-based. So what's the quality of your evidence? How rigorous is your reasoning? And whether you can differentiate facts versus hypothesis. And for the wonder piece, we want you to you can start to wonder whether this is something we want to bring back to my home country, or whether this is something we want to bring back to our client. And you have to have a certain logic behind it. And this is something we will also evaluate from this round. Okay, so we just want to share what we will do for the first 2 rounds. For the last 2 rounds, we will share more detail on the online summit. So who can join this one, or who should join? We highly recommend everyone to join. This is a great opportunity to sharpen your thinking skills. So don't see it as a competition, see it as a learning opportunity. How to apply it? If you haven't applied it, go to our official website, and on the first site, you will see apply now. Just click on it, fill out the form, and you will sign up. It's a free competition, so don't miss the opportunity to learn. Now we'll move to the Q&A session. So if you have any question, you can scan the QR code and you can ask the question now. So before anyone asks any question, I just want to share with you some of the things I think is critical. First, for the final presentation or for the final, we encourage and we will sponsor students from Hong Kong and Singapore fly over to Taiwan to join the final. But we also understand that some people doesn't want to fly at all because it was just a weekend. It would just be a weekend. So we also offered the channel for you to join remotely. So it's going to be a hybrid model. So if you don't want to join, you don't want to fly over, it's totally fine. But if you want to join, you will be sponsored to fly over. We will sponsor your flight ticket and hotel. And another thing we wanted to share with you is that If you find the first 2 rounds is a good opportunity for you to learn, but you do not want to join round 3 and round 4, you don't want to join semifinal and final, you have the option to do so. So in your in second round, you will be able to click on I do not want to join the following round, because in the first 2 rounds, you will be able to join with just single language, the language you prefer. But in semifinal and final, you will do it in bilingual setting. You have to, some material will be in Chinese, some of the conversation will be in Mandarin. You have to rely on your team member. If you find that's too much burden for you, you do not want to take that challenge, you can choose to just join round 1 and round 2. And if you just join round 1 and round 2 and you finish your round 2 challenge, you will still be able to receive your certificate. Okay, so I think that's roughly all the content we wanted to share with you. I will stop my screen sharing. So Emily, if you want to pull up your Slido, we will see how many people, what other questions we have. Okay. Are there any recommended reading or practice for the challenge? Yes, we have some material provided on the website. So when you go on our website, you will see a practice session. So in that session, you will see the round 1 and round 2 topic last year as your practice. It's like a simulation site. So you will have a look and a sense of what it looks like, what it feels like. And we also have a lot of mini practice on our Instagram. We also have a brand Olympics that host regularly. We will announce the next one on our Instagram as well, but that will be in Mandarin and Chinese. So that's the only downside of it. But if you want to try it, that's something you can do to prepare for your round 1. And if you want to change your time period after you apply, yes, for sure. We know sometimes new things happen. So if you wanted to change that, you can fill up the form to change for your time slot, and where you can change it, the form is on our official website too. You can find that in the FAQ. That's where you can change the time slot. Okay, I think I finished all these questions. So if there's no further question, I think this will be it for the whole Q&A session. If you have other questions coming up after this, you are absolutely welcome to write emails or write message to us. We are happy to answer any question you have. Okay. Okay. Yeah, and if you're worried whether we have a recording, yes, we have a recording about this whole session, and we'll put it on the website. So if you want to come back to review what we have said today, you can also find that on our official website. Okay, then that's it for today. Thank you so much for joining us on the Q&A session. And if you have any question, we are more than happy to answer it anytime. And we also highly recommend you to join us on some mini practice if you are happy to do it in Mandarin and Chinese. We hope to see you in the challenge next year. And we also highly recommend you to share this with your friends, invite more friends to come and take this challenge as your learning opportunity. And we hope everyone can build up your own thinking skills and become a more independent thinker in the future. Thank you, everyone, for joining today, and I hope we'll see you soon. See you next time.